Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to Versus Stars podcast, third season. How my loyal listeners, thank you for your continued support. And remember, click the subscribe button, everybody. This is an amazing episode because Bill Dawes boards the mothership. You know him from the Laugh Factory. Recently starred in Lawmen Reeves. Now come on board as we go traversing the stars. Hello, Mr. Dawes. Thank you so much for coming to Versus Stars podcast.
Thanks for having me on. Very nice to meet you, Jeff.
It's totally my pleasure. So I always start out with a question of inspiration. So what inspired your love for acting and who are your earliest influences?
My love for acting. How did I discover my love for acting?
What inspired it?
I would say that I was inspired by acting. I think the first thing that really filled up my dick, as it were, was I saw a filmed PBS production of True West with John Malkovich and Gary Sinise. And it's almost similar with comedy, being stand-up comic. At that time, to me, I was never like I didn't have a beautiful Shakespearean voice. I was terrible on the debate team. I had an awful lisp. I had vocal constriction. But I felt like I had a lot to say and had a lot of passion. But I just didn't realize that acting, there are different ways to act other than being like Benedict Cumberbatch or having this beautiful mellifluous voice like Ray Fiennes. And then you see John Malkovich, who has this kind of like thin voice, but just really comfortable in his body and was just doing real physical shapes and stunts. And it just was crazy. It reminded me of my life with my brothers, which is, I was always like an athlete. We were always giving each other wedgies and noogies and beat each other up. And I think that was one of the first times where I thought like, oh, acting can be really fun. You could be an actual human being to act. You don't have to be this weird, because when you're growing up, and particularly in high school, you watch Shakespeare, which to this day to me is watching paint dry. I don't care who's in it. But I went to grad school for acting. It's a very shitty thing to say, but it's true. Like Chekhov. Like you watch, you're like, I guess this is good, but it's dutiful boredom. You're bored. And then you see True West and they're beating each other up and strangling each other with phone cords and throwing toasted, trashing a set. And you're like, wow. So that was probably one of the initial things when I was in high school that got me interested. And then moving forward from that, it was, I was a dancer and I would do skits, comedy skits in my breakdance crew, where I would pretend to be like Vanilla Ice or Mark Wahlberg and just kind of get laughs from that. So I think my first foray was like clowning and comedy. That was what got me mostly interested in acting.
So as I did a little bit of research on you, you're an actor and a comedian with an aerospace engineering degree from Princeton University. Am I understanding that correctly? So can you connect these dots from comedy, acting, aerospace engineer degree?
Oh, so easy. And I'm actually not being sarcastic because I don't know about your experience from high school. I find there are very few people, and I've interviewed people on my podcast, and I find there are people who are like this. When they're 15 years old, they go, this is what I want to do. I know, and they just go in that path and they never veer, and that's the rest of their life. I feel like most people, when they're 15, 16, 17, applying for colleges, you have no idea what you want to do. First of all, your family, at least my WT family in Virginia, is not telling me like, pursue your dreams. They're like, just get a job so you can have a house.
Right.
So I'd never really realistically thought about comedy or acting, but I needed a major. And I got into Princeton for some bizarre reason. That's another story. But I wasn't like the best student in the world. I think there was like some weird, like my school was a very rough and tumble public school. I joke in my act, I'm like, it was 70% black and 30% terrified. And there were articles published about how Princeton was an elitist, snobby, racist school for not letting in kids from public schools, like mine in particular. And then the next year I got in, so whatever. And then you need to pick a major. And the truth is, and this is what I tell anyone going to college, even if you want to get into NYU and be an actor, go into NYU for engineering and then just transfer. Because once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
So when I was in Princeton, I guess I was pretty good at math and stuff, but I didn't, and I wanted to meet girls. So that's why I took acting class. And then probably by the end of my sophomore year, I was like, oh, wait, this is I kind of like this. This might be something I want to do. But I was 2 years into my engineering degree. So I just figured, what can I do for the next? I'll just skate by and just get my degree and just see what I can do. Because I had no interest in being an aerospace engineer, but that was the degree that you had to finish. And I just didn't want to transfer to an English degree and have to read Paradise Lost or some bullshit 800-page thing that's going to make me sleep. So I stuck through it. I got my degree somehow. And then when I was in, and went to grad school, and I was really a theater nerd, and I just wanted to do new plays in black box theaters. And then there was a point where I felt, and this is kind of connected to the engineering degree, I guess, because I felt that directors and playwrights were talking to me sometimes like I was stupid.
Mm.
And I was like, actually, I'm not stupid, so you don't have to talk to me that way. Number one. Number two, wouldn't it be better if we did this instead? And they're like, oh, Bill, an actor with an opinion, what next? So I found myself doing a lot of new plays with a bunch of fucking idiots who weren't talented, but they were the boss. And you were taught from graduate school to sort of like worship the drippings of any playwright, like they shouted from the asshole of Krishna, I'm so lucky to catch your words. So that was kind of my experience doing some amazing directors, obviously brilliant people, but 1 out of 3 was probably just like, what the fuck am I doing with this person? So it made me think, I have ideas, I have opinions, I want to have a voice. And since I kept getting shot down trying to share my voice in theater, I started doing stand up. So it's kind of connected, because it's kind of like, you develop your mind and you have critical thinking, and you want to be able to access your critical thinking. And sometimes some playwrights think actors are just pawns for their words. David Mamet, for example. It's just like, I'm not interested in that. I disagree.
Now, it's kind of interesting talking about your stand-up. I watched your Laugh Factory stand-up, and you do a lot of stuff on the Laugh Factory. But one thing I think you do very well, and you do a lot of it, is crowd work. Now, how much of crowd work can be practiced, and how much is it just on the spot, and how much of a risk are you taking because you have no idea not only what you're getting yourself into, but what could happen if you're not careful with the joke?
I mean, I don't really think there's any downside to crowd work, truly, because at the end of the day, if you're talking to someone and the conversation is going nowhere, you can just go, okay, anyone else? You can just kind of make a joke out of the fact that now you're, engaged in this boring conversation with someone, and people find that funny. There's one of the crowd work, God, I'm forgetting his name. I feel really bad. I should know his name. Not Jimmy Dores. Anyway, his role is like, what's your name? Where you're from? What do you do? What's your name? Where you're from? What do you do? Those 3 questions. If you ask those 3 questions, you will always be given something. A name, something funny name. Where you're from, something funny where you're from. And then what do you do has the most opportunity for stuff. So, but sometimes you go, what's your name? Jim. Where are you from? Bakersfield. What do you do? Engineer. Anyway, that's boring. So it's sort of foolproof. I feel like crowd work, it's very rare that crowd work becomes a terrible thing unless you get someone who just really wants to pick a fight in the audience and they just hate you.
Has that
And
happened?
then it becomes more of a heckling situation. But if people are there for you and you're doing crowd work, you kind of can't lose.
Has that ever happened? Have you ever picked someone in the crowd and have it go really wrong?
Okay, well here's of course, but here's one story that I always thought was funny. I was at the Laugh. I feel like the more you do it, the more experience you get on stage, the more you realize when something's a lost cause and when to move on. And I just headlined the Tropicana Laugh Factory in Vegas for a week during F1 week. So you can imagine during F1 week, there's a lot of booze. A lot of people just showing up who couldn't get F1 tickets, who came to the club.
Wait, F1. Sorry, I'm not sure what F1.
Formula One, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay, yes.
So they shut down the entire strip and they turned it into a racetrack. And so, I mean, my friend makes a joke. NASCAR is for people who believe in the Epstein conspiracy. F1's for people who actually were involved in the Epstein conspiracy. It's kind of a richer audience, but there's a lot of people there who are just like good, and they're drunk and they show up and I guess I'm at a comedy show now. So I had to deal a lot. But when you get, at this point, I'm 17 years in, you can kind of navigate that pretty easy. But early on, I was at the Laugh Factory in Hollywood one time, and there was a black dude with like pimped out coat, like sunglasses, and he had his arms, and there were these two women or whatever. And I was kind of talking to him, just trying to like, oh, look at this guy, look at this player, just something stupid. And I took an old vaudeville joke that I stole, and I said, what horrible creature had to die for you to wear that coat? Let me guess, your auntie. Which is an old, hacky vaudeville joke. It's great, right? He stood up with his big pointed fingers at me like this one, and like fake gunshot me. And I went like, oh no, finger guns, what am I gonna do? He walked out, and he took the two women with him. Apparently, he went to the box office, left a card. He was a producer at Death Row Records.
Oh.
And he left a card, and he said, if I wasn't here with my auntie, I would have shot and killed that motherfucker.
Oh.
And they told the owner that. And the owner's like, buddy, Jamie Masada, the Laugh Factory, buddy, only 2 death threats, you and Andrew Dice Clay. I was like, great. I feel pretty good. Solid death threat. All right. But that was just a weird freak occurrence. And, you get to a place where you recognize that there are people that you just don't mess with.
So when you're on the stage, right, and you're looking through the audience, right? How good are you at knowing who to call on? Like, are you able now to like kind of like read like this person is someone who I probably should go for? This one's probably something kind of funny, or is it still just a roll of the dice?
Gosh, it's a good question. I mean, usually you can just tell. Well, there's a couple things. The people who are like they're just ready for anything you do, so you can kind of play with them. And then these are the people you want. You want the people who are like, I'm here, but so far I'm not impressed. You just want to get them. You just want to get them. Just make them laugh. I mean, I did a whole show in Vegas where there's this couple, this man, this woman, and she just was on her phone, arms folded, and he was laughing. And I was just like, I'm going to do everything I can. Every time I told a joke that I think was geared towards her, I would look over. She's still texting, like, God damn, okay, next one. I kept looking for the joke to make this one person laugh. Never succeeded. She didn't believe in the show. But I think so. I think sometimes it's like you just want to crack that person that you can tell doesn't like you. And I'll be honest with you, so a lot of times I go on a stage looking the way I look in front of an urban crowd. Their initial reaction isn't going to be like, oh, I love this cracker. Their initial reaction is going to be like, you better make me laugh. And then if you don't, then it's like, I got to double down on everything and make it more ridiculous, more silly, harder and edgier to make them laugh,
Yeah. That's funny. I mean, when you're on stage and you're preparing, you're about to go on stage, you have a set in mind that you're going to do. How good are you, and how necessary is it to, on the spot, rewrite your set for the audience that's in front of you?
Well, I don't think that I don't really necessarily agree with that in the sense that you want to have your exact set. I usually things just sort of naturally evolve in such a way that I'll start talking about something that's recently relevant to me, right? Like having a kid. So I know I want to talk about my kid. And sometimes I can tell an audience like they don't want to hear about kids or they don't want to hear about COVID. And then from there you go, okay, what are the other, you have your 5 or 6 general things that you can talk about yourself. You can talk about yourself, your family. You can talk about where you're from. You can talk about being single. You can talk about getting older, different things that you have plethora of, I mean, probably when all is said and done, I probably have 6 or 7 hours of material that I kind of have and I can kind of rotate around. Mostly people, they get specials and then they retire it, but I haven't done special. Well, I've done some specials, but nothing. Well, I'm like, I want to retire this material. So, you want to kind of like rotate material in and retire it for good. And then sometimes you dig back to something that's 10 years old and you're like, let me spruce this up a bit. And it becomes your best joke.
So when you think about your comedy, are you thinking first about something that you find funny, or do you think something that is easy to identify with you, and that audience may identify with you, or do you think identifying with you directly isn't exactly going to happen with every audience to begin with?
fuck the audience. I don't know. I think that a lot of comics feel that way. It's sort of I used to my buddy Joe DeRosa, who's a comic, we would joke about the fact I'm like, your job as a comic is to please the audience. That's your number one job, to make them laugh. And his point of view was like, no, your number one job is to express your point of view, no matter what, even if people don't laugh.
Mm.
I think there's, the truth is somewhere in the middle, right? I think people, you got to remember a lot of these people, they work at Kinko's 9 to 5. It's $50 for a ticket. Some shows they bring their girlfriend or wife. You got a 2-drink minimum. This is like a $200 night, $300 night for a lot of these people. And they come to a show. They don't want to be lectured to. They don't want to be insulted. They don't want to be demeaned. They don't want to be. They want you to like them. A lot of comics are always obsessed with like, oh my, does the audience like me? Well, the audience wants you to like them. So let them know that you like them. And a lot of the ways you let them know you like them is just doing stuff that's really easy and really palatable for them to chew on, that you don't have to be. And sometimes that's just doing the silliest like joke book joke, just to kind of like mix it up, I mean, I did a stupid joke book joke. There was like a teenager in the audience, and I have a lot of dirty shit. You realize that. Watch myself. I said, okay, let's do something for like teenager kids, like something that's, how about this? How does Harry Potter get down the hill? How? By walking. J.K. Rowling. And then it's a stupid joke, right? But then audience, they laugh at the dumbness of a dad joke. And then you have some sort of weird common ground where you can kind of go, okay, now I can go back to personal stuff. So I think that kind of went off tangent, but I think the idea is that you always have to make sure that you got the audience like comfortable and laughing. Because if all you want to do, what people don't realize when you have comics like Bill Burr and stuff, and I love Bill Burr, but Bill Burr didn't just go on and crush at Red Rocks like he did. Like Bill Burr bombed a lot. He got people and women walking out a lot, calling him sexist, racist, misogynist, not hiring him, not booking him, because they're like, and he just stayed in the pocket and said, "This is my voice. This is who I am," and the audience found him. And now it's great because he can be his authentic self. He can be as offensive as he possibly can, and the people that are watching him know that. They know that Bill Burr is going to say something that's going to be pretty edgy, and they love it.
Well, you have a bit that I really like, and I like it more now that I'm married. About listening to your girl story went high. I think that it's a really funny bit that you did. Like I said, as someone who, yeah, and as I kind of, like I said, as I've been married, the longer it's been married, the more funny I'm finding that story. So,
oh my god, I don't do that bit anymore, but yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I really like it because, like I said, well, my wife might be watching, so I don't understand the joke at all. No, it's a really good bit.
What do you mean? Her stories are always fascinating.
Right.
I have a point.
And once again, and the question I always ask is, once again, that's a story that you gotta be careful with sometimes. Do you ever worry or that there's a risk of alienating the audience?
100%. 100%.
The worth
I mean, and sometimes the fun is alienating the audience, acknowledging that you've alienated the audience, and then getting them back. There used to be, I don't know if I heard this from Patton Oswalt or David Cross, but those guys, they did the old, like the hardcore Southern, they came up doing like the Southern circuit, where like, I mean, they did shows where there was like wire fence in front of them. People threw bottles to break on the fence. And David Cross and Patton Oswalt were very, very edgy back in the day. And they would get threatened and chased and do stuff. But they were so brilliant that they would do well. And they would challenge each other. They would say, listen, I'm going to dig a hole for 5 minutes and I'm going to kill at the end. Watch. Oh yeah, I'm going to dig a hole for 6 minutes and then I'm going to kill. Watch. And so they would see how long they could dig a hole before they could get the audience back as a challenge. Which I think is great. I never want to do that. Sometimes that happens. I mean, and I go, how do I get them back? And so it's always good to have like 3 or 4 bits that you just feel have like a universal, they're silly, you're the butt of the joke. But then some of the bits that you want to do the most are the ones that are the most. I mean, one of the bits I have that's my favorite bit I do is I say, when my girlfriend at the time, when she told me she was pregnant and she wanted to keep the baby, I was surprised because I thought she was a Democrat. And so people kind of get like, whatever the reaction is, I don't care about the reaction. I go, let's be honest, if I got an LA Gen Z liberal pregnant, I wouldn't have gotten a phone call. I just would have gotten a Venmo request for abortion money with an emoji of a crying baby, plus a trash can, plus a thumbs up, like $400, request denied. Now, to me, that's just funny. To me, the audience is it's hit or miss. You can't help it. I love doing it. But then there's things I do like being at the gym and then turning gay at the gym and having my thong strap, or just doing all the accents, the different accents. People love accents for some reason. They love, if you can sing or rap or do an accent, people, it's kind of amazing how people, in general, collectively, people love certain things. Everyone loves the same certain thing as a collective audience, not individually, because individually people are like, this is so, but collectively people like dad jokes, rhyming, accents, impersonations. They go crazy for it. Singing. Yeah.
Well, the one thing you hear all the time in the world of stand-up is the idea that you can't you can't tell jokes anymore for offensive people, stuff like that. How much of a myth is that?
It's the biggest myth out there. It doesn't have any value. As a matter of fact, I think the opposite is true. But I do think it's been recent, because I think what happened was during the Trump presidency, people were on, I don't know what it was. It felt 2016 to 2020 was a really hard to count. And then 2020 was really hard, particularly if you did anything that was racial or seemed sexist or misogynist. I mean, I had to host a show like the day after Harvey Weinstein got busted. And I tried to and that was just not the time to make a joke about that, but I didn't know what else to do. But I will say that I find that people go to live shows now versus Netflix, or because they want a non-curated experience where they don't know what the fuck is going to happen. And I think it's rare that people come to comedy shows nowadays to get offended. I think that was something people used to show up like, I better not get offended. But I think now it's just sort of known that if you're offended by a comedy show, you're an idiot. Don't come. Or like, particularly if I'm the headliner, I'm like, you can Google me. And some of the stuff that like people get offended by, it's just, and I really mean this too. It's Buddhism, right? It's sort of one of the most essential principles of life. You're actually never offended by the other person. You're experience your own trigger that's from your life and from your childhood. And your trigger is going like this, and you're going, fuck you, but it's you. I mean, honestly. So I always say, I do a joke. I'll just say it's a joke. It's awful, but I'll say it. I talk about how, as I've gotten older, and I do mean this part of it, I find that women are better than men. They're way more compassionate and empathetic, and they can multitask, and they're better in bed. They have multiple orgasms, and they care about other people, and they can make a baby by themselves and feed it with their nipples, and they don't need a man. They can raise that baby to be the president of the United States without any guy. Women are incredible, blah, blah, blah. They have higher IQs. They do a whole litany of, yeah. And I go, yeah, that's amazing. But also shut the fuck up. Just shut your fucking mouth 1 second of your fucking life's life. Shut your for what? And I just keep going like, I was like, I don't mean that bad way. I just mean shut your goddamn fucking mouth for 1 minute, you stupid fucking bitch. And they get all mad. I go, I know this. Was it the word bitch? Sorry. Some people hate the word bitch. Who hates the word bitch the most? Cunts. Now, at that point, we've got about 30% of the audience who hates me. You'll never guess the gender of the audience that hates me. Anyway, and then you have 20% of the audience that thinks I'm their new hero. So what I say, I go, if you are offended by the word cunt, spoiler alert, which is to say, like, maybe you're a fucking cunt. But I think that people get offended by things that affect it. It's a classic case of, I think Jimmy Carr had this in England where he during his special he he's an incredibly offensive comic, and then he did a joke about Down syndrome and was like, "How dare you do that? My son has Down syndrome." He goes, "I just talked about fucking HIV and genocide and this, but then I say to them it pertains to you, and now you're offended."
All right.
And I think that if you can call people out to recognize the fact, I think it can happen in real time, to recognize the fact that you're being selectively offended by something because it particularly affects your life. But everything else that was way, way worse and way more offensive, you thought was great because it didn't have anything to do with you. Like, please at least recognize the irony in that.
Right.
So I think it's the best, I think most comics will say the best feeling you can ever get is when someone really doesn't want to like you. They want to hate you, and they're hating you. And then they laugh, they go, and they catch themselves laughing at something you said, and they're almost like mad at themselves for laughing. That's the best, right? That's what I think, So, and you can definitely get people and change their minds, but you can also get people and they can just end up, even if they think you're funny, they just don't want to talk to you after the show. They think you're a piece of shit or something. I don't know.
So,
what are you gonna do, eh?
So it's one of the great parts about when you do a joke, a lot of the jokes, there's like that turn where you build the audience in one direction, but then you make that turn again in the other direction. Now, how much of that is the wording that makes a successful turn, or how much of that is timing of the turn, or like how long of a pause or wait, and how much of that is learned, and how much of that just instinct?
These are really good questions, Jared.
Oh, thank you. I do what I can. I do show up.
I thought we were going to talk about acting, but this is even better.
We're getting there at some point.
So, one of my favorite artists in the world is Trey Parker, right? And he talks about how he writes comedy scenes. He goes, comedy scenes should never be this happens, and then this happens, and then he goes, that's everything is but then therefore this happened, but then this happened, therefore this happened. So all of his writing, the calculus has to be a but then. So comedy, everything is a but then without saying the but then. For example, I say, which is a true story. I said, my girlfriend with COVID, she got pregnant, and she got COVID while she was pregnant. She got the Delta variant, which is true. And we were reading about COVID babies, and she prepared me so there's some serious side effects. Number one, the baby can be born premature. And number two, the baby can come out black. So that is one of those, baby, but it came out black. Now, obviously, baby didn't come out black, but that's a joke. But then I go, so then people are like, oh, what's he talking about? I go, yeah, it's just one of those weird things. Me and her best friend Jamal were talking about it. How that happened. But don't worry, me and little Jamalia, we're doing great. So you just kind of like, they're always, the right turn is always there. And I think that if I were to tell any comic, like, just always look for it in the writing. In terms of the performance of it, I do think that it's important to land, and I find that a lot of comics, they don't land on their jokes, because when you land on your joke and you claim a joke, there's not a lot you can do while you're landing. Like, you can just land and look in the audience, land, do a little face, do a little, one thing that a lot of comics do, which I fucking hate, and I find myself doing it too, as you do your landing punchline, blah, 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 and you do this weird, like, thing where you go, so I told her, like, fuck off. And it's just stake your claim, hit the mark, hit your punchline, land on it, stay in the pocket, and just look at the audience. And if they don't laugh at all, you could even just go on the mic. If you think it's funny, they're not laughing, it's like, okay, that didn't work, moving on. But at least just stay in it. But the whole, like, passive aggressive, like, punchline, and I'm like, oh God. And I find myself doing that sometimes. And it's a bad vocal tick. It's a bad comedy tick that people do. And it just shows, like, a lot of, like, they're getting the laughs and the lack of confidence about what they're saying. And I just personally think that's easy. I'd rather confidently bomb. Which I do.
That's funny because now, as I'm watching stand-up routines, I love watching stand-up. Is that I can now watch and see, oh, that comic was not confident about that joke. He did the right at the end. I can tell right now.
Yeah. That doesn't mean it's a bad joke. Sometimes it's just like, okay, take that joke that you weren't confident and now build it. You know, it
Now,
could be really funny.
now one thing, Scooby, we're about to jump into the acting part. How much of comedy is acting performance, and how has that helped you become the actor that you are?
Another good question. I mean, ultimately, I guess I'll never know. I mean, I think for me, I've always been an introvert, and I've never been good at public speaking, and I have like bad diction and like a weak voice. You know, when I was in grad school, I went to NYU for grad school for acting. Was in school with people who had like really nice voice. They could sing Broadway songs, do Shakespeare in their sleep. They didn't have like they could roll their R's, and I had like no vocal skills or diction or linguistic skills. Um, so comedy, a lot of comedy for me was really just physically and metaphorically discovering my voice, you know, just learning. I mean, as I'm acting, I'm learning tricks for how to catch breath, where to catch breath, how big a breath you want to catch, how to get a bigger sound in the back of your throat, how to get it in your nose, how to do different, like where to put your voice. And you learn that stuff in acting school. But then when you're an actor, you're mostly like walking around with a backpack auditioning for bullshit parts. You're not acting on, even if you're doing a play, you know, I mean, I've been lucky. I've been in plays that went for like a year and a half, but most of the time you do a play for a month and then you wait another 3 months to do a play for a month. But when you do comedy, it's pretty much every week of your life. It's very rare that I go a full week without doing stand up. So you're using your voice and you're discovering how to use your breath and how to use when you're you know your heart rate gets accelerated. There's a movie called The Killer on Netflix now, and he's always like, if I'm going to shoot him, my blood pressure needs to be at, you know, my heartbeat needs to be at 67 beats per minute. And it's kind of like you can kind of have this weird biofeedback loop with yourself on stage where you're like, okay, you just did something physical, take a breath, take a beat, relax your body. People will always respond more. This is a weird life hack, or it's probably true for everything, but acting and comedy. They will always respond more to a relaxed body, to a relaxed person. So if you do a joke and you, even for example, that joke I said earlier where I said, the baby can come out black. Yeah, it's a weird medical anomaly. If I just go, relax. Me and her best friend Jamal, we were talking about it the other day. That will get a bigger laugh than if I'm staying tense. But yeah, me and her best friend Jamal, you know, it's like you relax, like nothing's gonna happen. And then you say the line. So it's out of nowhere. And I find the same thing with acting too. It's like you kind of like the moments where you can just relax and then say what you're gonna say always adds an element of surprise, which I think is what exists in real life that doesn't exist in bad acting. Bad acting, you're ahead of everything they're gonna do. Same thing with bad comedy. You're ahead of every joke, you know?
It kind of reminds me, back in the day, I used to be in commission sales. And the funny thing is,
What sales?
commission sales, like I used to sell mattresses and
Okay.
furniture. Yeah. And the funny thing, what I realized was the more I wanted to make the sale, the less people wanted to buy from me. Like the more I seemed like I wanted, you know, something, the more like I needed to make this deal happen, more people were like, just like repulsive, like, I'm not buying from that guy. It's like, you would think the person who you could tell wants to make that sale, you'd be more like, let's help this guy out. He wants to make that sale, but they're less likely to do so. They're like, get away from that guy. He wants the sale.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, the same thing why people respond in general. They respond to deeper voices because a deeper voice is uh, a lower frequency of sound wave, right? So it's a more relaxed sound wave. Usually the vocal cords are more relaxed, the deeper voice. You know, you get a massage sometimes and then you talk, you sound like friggin', you know, James Earl Jones for like 10 minutes. It's exact because everything is relaxed and people will naturally respond more to a relaxed body. They'll gravitate more towards it. They'll lean in, they'll listen. But if you're like this, your voice like this, everything like this, it can be compelling, but it's exhausting. You don't want to hang out with that person on stage or on screen, you know? It's too muscular. I just saw a movie called Dix the Musical.
Okay.
Love to Dix the Musical. I think it's brilliant. But Megan Mullally, great actress, but she does like this lisp in this movie where she's the lead in the movie. It's a very muscular performance. And I'm just bummed that no one grabbed her, shook her, said, "Stop fucking doing that. You're too good. What the fuck? Why are you ruining your performance by making everything so big?"
Yeah.
It just was like really is just, I mean, you know, you learn lessons every day. I'm looking at this incredibly accomplished, talented actress who can sing like a motherfucker. I didn't even know it. Ruined the fucking movie by a muscular performance that was just too much, and it wasn't coming from a relaxed place. And I think it happens a lot, and people don't realize that that's what's going on. They just realize they don't like something. Why don't I like it? Because you're watching someone like forcing a performance at you, you know.
Well,
And I'm guilty of that too. Don't get me wrong.
well, I always said that the best acting is when you can't tell the person's acting.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna name names, but some people that you can like feel them like acting through the screen. You're like, oh, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, at the same time, like you want people to, you like the idea of character work, and you want to do character work, and you want to do something different. Like I appreciated what Leonardo DiCaprio did with Killers of the Flower Moon, or whatever. He's obviously way better actor than me. He's brilliant, and he's doing this like underbite. He's trying to play this like tough guy. I'm like, congrats for doing that. But if you didn't do that, it'd be so much better. It'd be so much more compelling if you were just hot Leo playing a kind of a dumb guy, as opposed to like, I'm hot Leo, but I'm putting on an underbite. It's forced, you know. Sorry, Marty.
Well, to go to your character Joshua on Lawman Bass Reeves and talk about doing a performance, you're playing 19th century Reconstruction age Wild West character who's also a racist dick. I was about to say, how hard is that to play? I don't know if that's a suggestive question or not.
Easy,
But,
easy like Sunday morning, baby. But by the way, but I mean that, and what I mean is, it's really easy to play villains. The good thing about villains, and the good thing about people that are maybe dumb, although you never want to call your character dumb, is that they have a very specific and clear point of view about their life. My point of view is that Bass Reeves he shouldn't be a deputy marshal. He's not, my guy's cool. Your guy is like, you got this black dude teaching you like, oh, nah, man. Now, how racist is my character? I mean, who knows? It could be a complete naivete because he just grew up that way. Maybe it's not the seething hatred. He's just like, I don't get these black people. Who knows? I mean, it didn't serve me to play him with like the hatred, but I just played, hey man, the South was right. The Confederacy should have won. This guy's amazing. He's a genius. Barry Pepper character Esau is amazing. And like, you got this Bass Reeves guy. What does he know? He was a slave. He's not going to know. Like, it's just it's an ignorant but simple and clear point of view. You know, I think most villains, they have a clear point of view. They want to accomplish this thing. Even if you're playing Jeffrey Dahmer, I mean, as complex as his crazy head was, he wanted to get these guys in his room, kill him, fucking eat him, or whatever it was he did, and store him. That's what you want to do. So however tactic you need to do it, you have your through line, you have your super objective. Sometimes people can play like leads in movies where they're the lead good guy and their point of view is, I'm the lead good guy. And you go, well, that's boring. So that's why I think, why it's fun to play villains, or at least people who have a strong point of view that may be malevolent,
Is there ever, sometimes audiences have issues separating the actor from the character. Is there ever a concern of playing the character so well that they believe you?
God, I wish. I wish I did something that people believed me. Let me think. Well, I mean, I will say this during Bass Reeves. Kind of funny story. And I'm from Virginia, and so I slide into like my mom's from like Kentucky, so I slide into like a Texas sort of west, very easily for me, right? And I just kind of talk that way when I'm on set, because why not? And we had to do this moment where we're doing a prisoner transfer with this actor Tosin, who's in Bastards, who's a great actor, a black guy who's a prisoner for us, and I'm an ex-Confederate soldier, right? And he's my prisoner, and we had to do all this business. I had to get him to come over here, and I had on time to the back of the trailer. There's a lot of space, and I'm carrying the stick for the horses. So I say, I'm like, we need force. So I get over here, boy, and I start smacking him with the stick, like, oh, you're a big boy, ain't you? Which is what my character would say. Now I'd run it over with Toast. I said, Toast, is it cool if I kind of hit you with a stick, kind of slap your thighs? I'm like, oh, we got a big boy right here. He's like, yeah, whatever you want to do. So I did that. And I thought it worked great. It worked with the transition great. And then David Uella, who's Bass Reeves, they kept cut. He walks over to Toast, is like, are you okay, man? Is everything fine? Was that okay that he did that? And I'm like, no, we're actors. We were talking. It's fine. No. I didn't hit him with a stick because I wanted to, not Bill. But I think that, and I may be wrong, but I think that David, I don't think he liked me for the rest of the shoot. Because I think it's just I'm playing a shitty guy. And when you're in the scene, I mean, look, my feelings when they say action and they want you to be an authentic character, you can say anything you want that fits that character. That means certain words that may be verboten for the rest of humanity are not verboten for an 1880 Confederate soldier. Now, I didn't say such words, but I'm just saying, how authentic do you want it? I mean, in City Hill, I played a Boston cop. And I'm chasing a young black kid down the street for 20 minutes. You're like, just improv, yell after him. I'm like, I'm playing a racist Boston cop in the 80s in Boston. Like, you want to give me limits of what I can say? Because you're going to have to. Because if you really want me to improv, I would probably say what this actual guy would say.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. I like that you mentioned that you need someone to rein you in a little bit.
I mean, no, I always try to but you do want to bring something authentic. You want to bring just you don't want things to be anodyne, because I don't care. My personal belief in everything artistic, whether it's comedy or acting, whatever, if there's no danger at all, whether it's physical danger or psychological danger, then why fucking do it? I mean, I think that part of the reason why the best physical comics of all time famously have serious injuries because of what they would do to their bodies, what Buster Keaton would do. I mean, he broke every bone in his body famously. Charlie Chaplin. I mean, even Molly Shannon in SNL as Superstar, she would throw herself into these chairs, and she got fucked up several times doing that. But that's what made it interesting and dynamic. It wasn't just this, everything wasn't safe and anodyne. And same thing when an actor, we see an actor, back to Leonardo DiCaprio, when you see him in Basketball Diaries screaming and crying for heroin outside his mother's door, it's he's putting himself through something, whether it's how deep in the character is, he just has that emotional, availability, but he's putting himself through some torture, and I think for me, I just want to see that. I want to see an act. I want to see. It should cost you if you're a lead in the movie. If you're playing a bad guy, good guy, it should have a little bit of a cost, in some level.
You actually have a good quote that you made on Instagram about Lawmen Bass Reeves that I'm gonna echo. If that's okay. It's a good one. It's not a bad one. I'm gonna get the guy's name wrong again. David
Uella.
Oh well, I was never gonna get that one right. No matter how many. David. Following a scene where he appears out of shadowy corner as Bass Reeves, you told him, "If the camera sees what I just saw, you're winning an Emmy." So, what is it about that performance that stood out to you? Was it, and how does that help you as an actor, having an actor who you feel is really nailing it on their end?
Well, first of all, I think after that whole thing with Toast and the Stick, I was a little bit afraid of him. He's also a producer and my boss on some level. But this scene, so I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but I'm kind of handcuffed. I'm the prisoner of Dennis Quaid and Bass Reeves, and I'm being recalcitrant and whatever. I really wanted to spit in Dennis Quaid's face. I just wanted to. God damn, I wish we were homies so I could spit in his face. I've done that before. I did something called what was it with the following with Kevin Bacon? I told the actor, he was like all methody. I was like, and I'm tied up. I'm like, all right, I got a crazy idea. He goes, what if I spit in your face? He's like, yeah, man, do it. Like he was just out of Juilliard. He loved it. And I spit in his face. He's like, oh my God, I'm gonna kill him. It was great. So anyway, so in between takes, I would just, like when they would handcuff me, they were like, okay, we're gonna just hold the handcuffs. I'm like, no, motherfucker, handcuff me to this bench. I want it pinching my skin. Handcuff me the way my character would be handcuffed.
All right.
But what about between takes? I'm staying here between takes. I'm just gonna say now. I'm not like, oh, you're so method. It's not. It's. We're talking about a couple hours. Big deal, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to like fake it. I want to be as close as possible to the truth. And so in that scene, and Dennis Quaid's there with his big hands. He's like, oh, I'm going to fuck this guy up. And he's threatening me. And he punches me around. And for some reason, he would be and David would be in this corner of this weird little hut we were in the darkness, and he would like slowly just start walking toward me, and then you'd kind of see, with his hat, this dark figure, and then all of a sudden his eyes, and he'd walk, and with this like real kind of, and I would feel myself start shaking. I would start shaking, and then he takes a gun and he like, points it towards my D, and I was having an autonomous response of fear that I knew was not real, but my body was experiencing it. And so it was partly like he just has a great dramatic face, and it coming out of the darkness, he's just got a great face for it. Probably why part of the reason why he's a star. And also, this is a role that he's committed a large part of his life to. I think years in the making. I think he was in Texas a year preparing horses and training and everything and gunplay to be this legendary character. So when you're that committed and you like are on the screen and you have that ability, it's just, you can see it. You can just kind of like, you can feel this is a committed person who, if he was to fully, go with his instinct, he would shoot me in the dick with a gun right now. And I represent everything he hates, like my character does,
Yeah.
This like unapologetic racist white Confederate guy who's mocking him, So I mean, in that moment in the actual show will probably be like a millisecond. They probably won't even have my reaction, just be his face the whole time. But yeah, I told him that on set. I said, man, I go, if Kramer catches what I saw, you're winning an Emmy.
What did he say?
He was like, why is this guy talking to me? No, he's and I was like, and it was after I wrapped, I was like, hey man, I just want to say, I'm not Joshua.
Yeah.
I'm a nice little guy from, I try to like, hey, I didn't, he's like, okay, yeah, all right, nice to meet you. Good job. He probably hates me. What are you gonna do?
So, as you said, you got to play against Dennis Quaid, and you didn't get to spit in his face, I assume. You did, or
did you get to what?
You didn't spit in his face, I assume, Dennis Quaid, or did you go for it?
No, and I actually look back, and I wish I had. I'm kidding, but no.
Okay, that's my new short that I'm going to come out with. Bill Dawes wish he spat in the face of Dennis Quaid.
No,
send it out.
Well, this is what I'll say, but like, I didn't do a lot with Dennis, but one thing I saw right away from working with him is this is a guy who still has a spirit of like a 20-year-old kid in acting class. He's still like, he's improvising, he's doing stuff off the cuff, he's trying new things, he's doing all this like fun, cool stuff. And there's what if I, and he's playing, and that's like, oh my God, I don't know, was he like almost 70 now, or I don't know, and he's like up there inspiring me to have fun, work with the lines, around the lines, and he wasn't just like, okay, what do I do? He was like literally chomping at the bit to like do this scene. And I was like, every part of me is like, improv with him. They'll let you improv, just improv with him. He wants to improv with you, improv with him. Just say, because he was getting in my face, and I had all these like, but it was during the writer's strike. I got real insecure about saying anything because the writers weren't there, and I was like, fuck. So I didn't improv. But at the same time, we still did get to like have a fun, playful moment kind of in the lines. What was the question again? I think I told you I wanted to try.
How badly did you want to spit in his face? No, basically just
yeah. So it was like just this idea that I wanted something. I wanted to interact with him organic way, and to get these authentic, real reactions from Dennis that maybe he's not expecting, you know, even if it was something like I like made to like bite at him or something just to get him to react, because he's such a he's so fucking present as an actor. You know, it's like you have a Lamborghini in front of you. You're not going to drive it. You want to do something. You don't want to go to the store. You want to do some donuts on the lawn and spit in someone's face.
Well, the thing that's kind of interesting about improv, I've never been an actor for many reasons, other than I'd be totally bad at it too, is that when someone's doing improv, how much pressure is that on you as an actor to try to come up with something yourself to make it worthwhile? And how much of it, because you're a stand-up anyway doing improv, are you able to be maybe quicker at it than someone like another actor maybe?
I don't think I have any particular gift for improv, honestly. You know, I might have some physical capability for improv where I can kind of like improv, taking props and doing things, because that's more my language. But like in general for improv, if you're really just listening, really what you need to do is listen to the other person and have your point of view, but listen to them, because then they'll give you stuff. My biggest acting mentor in my life was a guy named Jeff Weiss, who passed away last year. He was this East Village queen, sort of like a legendary like New York theater guy. And he wrote the craziest shit you've ever read. It was just so bizarre, and like gay incest was the plot that I was in with him. I was his son that he was fucking. He was also the wrestling coach. But he was a brilliant writer. And he would have this ability of giving to you like, oh, Billy, I love you. Yeah. And if you did anything, he would like catch it and receive it and just go, oh, in a way that I haven't experienced since, where I haven't been with someone where the amount of energy they gave to you was so expansive, and like you get the hairs on the back of your neck stand up. But then if you did anything, he would like receive it and respond to it. And I think that's really the key, is 100% commitment to what you're doing and saying, with 100% availability to receive what they're doing and saying. And I think that's a rare gift that most people can, you can only strive to get something like that in your life.
So what can we look forward to next with you and Lawmen Reeves, and then what's next for you?
I think I have 3 more episodes. I haven't been paying attention because I just want people to tell me they saw me, as opposed to like, am I on this episode? Yeah, so I think it's a fun part. Of course, you want everything to be bigger. You want to be like Sly Stallone in Lords of Flatbush and just add like chunks of monologue. But I had real good time with it, and everyone there was really amazing to work with. So after Bass Reeves, I'm the producer and actor of this movie that's produced by a company called Rotten Science, called Operation Taco Gary's, which is a comedy. So hopefully that's coming out. I'm associate producer on a movie called The Performance with Jeremy Piven about a Jewish tap dancer. And I like that. I like being the producer in Video Village who just gets to be like, I disagree with that costume choice, and then going having lunch. So what else? I mean, yeah, I'm just doing stand up. I'm at the Laugh Factory every Tuesday in Hollywood at 10 o'clock. I have a running show there. And then random gigs here and there that I do. I'm trying to think what else I have coming out right now. I mean, the strike kind of put things back for a bit. Oh, and season 2 of Mo on Netflix is coming out. So hopefully that will start soon. I think it's probably gonna be this coming up spring or summer. Yeah.
Oh, very good. I hope.